Sharpton's show last week and this week is, when is it going to move from Occupy to Occupy the Hood? That is, the people who are in need of a lot of what they're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say redistribution of wealth. That sounds like a progressive idea.
That's not what.
Right. Exactly.
They're not there because they hate They can be upset with but it's Occupy Washington. But it's even the people who say, everybody, you tell them about this constitutional amendment, or they read it. It's very simple soundbite for America to digest too if you read it. They all say, oh, what a good idea. But if you're sitting in office and you've been there 9 terms, 10 terms, and they're telling you that, and 96% of the time, the people with the most money win, and you're sitting in office, you're kind of comfortable with the system, status quo. We have to make them do it. So it has to be, as I said, seeds of a revolution. And it's what's great about it is that think about that the unions are there. They're ready. And think about, and when we understand a little better that all the black church is there, that's the fulfillment of Dr. King's dream. Mm-hmm. And that's where that Occupy could easily, just with a few steps, be. That poor people's revolution. And it's not a redistribution of wealth. It's not against business. It's against business controlling the future. It's not their job. Their job is, they have quarterly jobs to make money, to get your money and put it out of your pocket and into their business and return a profit to the investor. The idea that there's corporate citizenship, it's a flawed idea. It's because there's not compassion. There's no interest in the third quarter. There's no interest in anything, the environment. Or the animals, the abuse of this planet and all these things, it's just corporations' job to exploit everything around them. They should not govern us. So that's what I'm going to take from it, and that's a lot of the the most senior politicians on Washington. They say, "Oh, what a great idea," and they kind of brush it off. But until we occupy the dream, until we get everyone together, and I don't think it's far off. It's not hard. I hired recently Dr. Ben Chavis to help me to pull that together, not only me, but the whole team. I think it's very reasonable. Reverend Sharpton has been there, and Reverend Jackson has been there. We don't have a lot of African American. We haven't really defined it, but I think that's the media, and I think also the attack on the Occupy movement has only fueled it. As you know, all the mayors, and they attack, and it just creates more energy, and it's been very good for the movement, but also you have to realize that in half the camps or more, half the people or more are just homeless people being taken care of by these kids.
And explain that, because this movement has created opportunities for people to be respected when they're homeless, when they don't have a job, when they need a place to eat.
Many people have joined Occupy. In New York, they drop them off from Rikers Island and tell them there's free food, there's tents, and there's clothes right there. Mm-hmm. And they go live in the tents, and some find purpose and join the movement and are useful. They shouldn't be made into spokespeople as the media has done on a regular basis, found the homeless or the mentally ill or the vagrants, the ex-cons, and made them the face of Occupy. One minute, they're privileged kids from Harvard, and the next minute, they're homeless, they're vagrants who are crazy. So they got to make up their mind, but the media has been very, very, it's not, you go sit on Fox News, it's like it's not news, right? These are opinions. And so the media's been very opinionated, and I think we have work to do, because I think we have to convince some people who are opinionated. I was on Hannity a couple nights ago, and on Cavullo and some of those shows, talking to the conservatives, say, isn't this what you want? Do you want the elected officials that you, and some are libertarians, they say, yeah, it is what I want. So you have to frame it properly, because 9 out of 10 Americans want what these kids want. This is not a partisan thing, but it's an American thing. And those kids are patriots, and they're inspired, and they want to make a more perfect union.
As an entrepreneur, are you inspired now, or are you sort of disappointed in where we are? I mean, are you an optimist, given the fact that you still are in business, you're doing a great service, you're donating a lot of money to a lot of places, you're trying to lift up the bottom? But is this a good time to be optimistic?
I'm optimistic all the time. So I don't know how to. You do the best you can on what you have. And I don't really spend a lot of weight on markets. And even as an entrepreneur, there's no rationale that, now's the time to launch and now not. Mm-hmm. It's if you're inspired, go to work. I always had this, and I've gained over the years more courage in the idea that if you're inspired, go to work. from examples and experiences that have reminded me, just keep your head down, and whatever it is that you imagine is already there. I just have to have faith and diligence.
One of the big challenges now in here is that in trying to figure out where we're going, the whole idea is that what's the next generation going to do? And when we saw you every week on television exposing us to new talent, a whole new wave of talent, and those folks have become very successful. But where's Russell Simmons now? That is, I don't mean you, but where's that? I'm looking at television, I'm trying to figure out, and I see you're tweeting, you've got blogs, you're connected with that younger generation, but where is the Russell Simmons being creative to get people on television who wouldn't even be on television or radio? And you expose us to a whole generation of incredible artists. How do we
I think there's many
replicate that?
young, talented people. One thing that hip hop did is people who, and always, in every youth culture, people who are rebelling and create something of their own for their own generation. And the next generation, although it's the same label, is its own unique thing. And they're creating, from an artistic standpoint, these times don't hurt that creativity. The artistic expression is just as, it would struggle in poverty, and that's one of the things that, if we think of jazz or blues or rock and roll and rap, those are all things that came out of struggle, right? So that's not being hurt or damaged by the economy at all. And also by the innovation of the internet, it's allowed a lot of new talent to get exposed, and people who might not otherwise be in a competitive environment are now in a place where they could be competitive. So that I don't think that's being damaged. But I think the some of the things that we can do to correct the economy would be first to take, again, to give the people control of their government and corporations to abide by rules that protect the people in some ways, and I mean reasonable rules. I'm not trying to cut off business. You need a lobbyist to talk, but not to pay.
Right.
Explain, say, don't change that because I'll go out of business. I can't afford to make this stuff here, this particular, and you have a relationship. But some things you'll say, well, you have to make it here, or you tax it so much that they have, but the lobbyists have taken, and that's why you have the best week at Wall Street, or the best day in the history of Wall Street in the last 5-7 years or something like that, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
5 years, not so much as yesterday. But people are slipping deeper. Poverty is trickling up. There's no prosperity trickling down. Poverty, in fact, is gushing up, and prosperity is trickling up.
What's the message to Color Magazine? You see a room full of very diverse people who are very committed to diversity, trying to bring everybody together. It's a version of the Rainbow Coalition of the 20th century. Is this optimism?
Well, I think I'm optimistic about it. I think the gatekeepers in culture and in entertainment, certainly, and that has a lot to do with culture, a lot to do with the way we're going to act in the future, are still a little slow. They don't know that there's such thing as a post-racial America. There's some who live in it, and many other young people who aspire to live in it, and live in it, in their imagination. They like to see, but there's still so much segregation. You talk to a company like NBC, they say, we promise you we'll do diversity, and they make some more black networks. Now, I know that a lot of African Americans, civil rights era and even the new era, who are business people, like to take advantage of it. But the real truth is, if you're talking about culture, African Americans should play in the big media game. They should not be segregated. Martin Luther King fought for you to have access, and I think that part of that integration process in business is social as well. Just reading that there's a number of Jews that marry outside of their faith, 76%. I'm on the chairman of the Foundation for Ethnic Understanding. I work around the world on promoting dialogue between different ethnicities, so I get a lot of research. And African Americans, are last of everyone to integrate. And the country, and lots of times the gatekeepers who are trying know that diversity equals money, they don't get the feeling that we're working towards it ourselves. So for African Americans, have your kids be comfortable in every room in front of everyone. That segregation is, self-imposed to some degree. There's something Elijah did say. Elijah Muhammad said about chaining up the horse. You've heard this rap,
Yep.
right? And then you take the chain off and the horse still sits there. I liken this experience to kind of like that. So I think it's important. You know, I'm a strict believer that we have to be part of a diverse society. Doesn't mean don't have a black awareness, but it does mean that, or, you know, what can you do for your community? You know, the community, you know, you have no choice. I run 5 charities, mostly for blacks. I work where I'm useful. As a servant, I work where I'm useful. So I think, but seeing the world is important, and inviting everybody else into the world is important, and not being segregated and put into as a businessman. I don't want to chase 11% of the population, and God knows what percentage of the economics that is. I don't want to be in that business. So, and I think that, you know, you look at the other side of the coin. There are black agencies and companies and business. Madison Avenue has discovered that some of these black commercials play very well in the mainstream. They get them at a discount from the black agency. But see, there's a side of the thing when you talk about black culture that I didn't need, but I was really pleasantly surprised when years ago when I had a little kid who worked he was my friend, his husband, Helen Reddy, and he was a manager, and he had a son, and his son, Jordan, came to work for me. He lived in Malibu, a little Jewish kid from Malibu. His father, Jeff Walls, a dear friend of mine for all these years. And he was fighting in the room with the A&R team. He said, why is Nice and Smooth going to wear them purple suits? Why would they wear purple alligator shoes and purple ass suits when they have the Timberland boots and stuff? Why can't they wear? And one guy said, well, of course they're going to wear that. And we got on MTV. And that is, you have to know what it is. You can't say your culture is pop and you don't know anybody, why it's pop. You have to know why it's pop.
Right.
And you have to know what it is that, you know, so I have a proof of concept in my globalgrind.com. And it's the integrated staff, integration. You know, there's a kid who grew up, a young kid grew up in the suburbs who loved hip hop. He didn't like Vibe magazine. He liked The Source.
Gotcha.
It's urban graduates we're talking about. We're
Yep.
talking about urban graduates. The Source is different from Vibe. It's more rock and roll, more gritty. That's a kind of black culture, that's a part of pop culture, that's easily digestible, that is different. And so Global Grind is kind of that kind of pop culture, and that's a mainstream phenomena that's overlooked, that's a segment of the marketplace, and I say that it's treated like it's like having a niche market, but it happens to be mainstream. And you go in there and you're all alone. There's a white space for black culture's treatment in the right way. So it's not black culture, it's this new culture that black culture created. And it's really something that is being ignored. And if you're a black magazine, anything but a hair care,
Right.
anything but hair care, it has mainstream opportunities, and you should be able to brand it properly. I say that wrong? Obviously, you ain't got an afro. You can't sell afro pics in the suburbs. You just can't do it.
You're telling some urban legends
Yeah.
and secrets, right?
Yeah.
Russell Simmons, thank you so much for
Thank you.
sharing
My
these great
pleasure.
ideas and for your wonderful spirit.